From Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford, this is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolfe. You've seen actors transform into all kinds of characters. But what happens when an actor's own face is part of the story? Today we're talking with performers whose faces stand out because of how they've been affected by cancer and rare genetic conditions. Now, the terminology for these conditions is used differently by the people who have them. Some say facial disfigurement or deformation, and some say visible facial difference. We'll talk more about that. And we'll hear about what it's like working in an industry obsessed with appearance, while at the same time challenging the very beauty standards that define it. Later in the show, you'll meet Crystal Marshall. She's an actress making real changes in this industry that hasn't always been kind or open to those who don't fit the mold. But first, Adam Pearson. He's not only a working actor, but also has become a powerful advocate for better representation of facial disfigurements in the entertainment industry. His latest film, A Different Man, just premiered, and the entire plot revolves around him looking exactly the way he does. I asked him to describe what he looks like.
So I have a load of non-cancerous tumors I have a few all over my body, but most of mine are on my face and upper torso, which has given me a high degree of asymmetry.
When you were born, you looked just like any other baby. In fact, you looked just like your twin brother. When did your parents start noticing that something was different about your face?
The condition didn't start manifesting until I was 5. I bumped my head one night in my room, probably messing about doing something I shouldn't have been. And it came up in a bump, as it normally would, so we put ice on it and it went down. And then I did the exact same thing again, and then it didn't go down this time. And then we started asking questions and going to various doctor's appointments and GP appointments. And we eventually got a diagnosis. And back then, medicine and genetics weren't the art form they are now. So our diagnostic experience consisted of a GP reading a definition from a medical dictionary, patting my mum on the hand and putting it back on the shelf. Whereas nowadays, diagnosis happens a lot quicker and with a lot more tact, diplomacy and forethought.
What is your first memory of realizing that you look different than everybody else?
You often notice when other people point it out to you. You find yourself getting stared at on public transport. And you're either like, okay, they're either fancying me or something's up here. Let's try and figure out what one it is. Because one's a legal issue, one's a medical issue. And yeah, you have people point it out to you more often than not. They say kids can be cruel or brutally honest, one of the two. I think there's a really thin line between both of those statements. And so it's one thing to realize it, and then you have to go through this massive inner thought process where you decide how you're then going to respond to not only just the facts as they exist that you look different, but then how other people then respond to you looking different. So you've got to do the whole self-identity conundrum, but also the social conundrum, both at the same time, which when you're a child is a real quagmire to have to walk through. You get in your own head quite a lot when you have to navigate that.
Your mom, I've seen some documentaries that you've made featuring her, and she seems really freaking awesome and so loving and so funny. Will you talk briefly about what influence your mom had as you were growing up dealing with the way other people treated you?
My parents are what I like to call old school. I was raised in a not an overly strict house, but certainly a house with consequences. And as a result, I grew up with this thing called respect for others. But she was just like, okay, you're disabled. I don't see what you want me to do about it. And you have to live the life you've got rather than think about, ponder on, or mourn the one that you don't. And she was like, yep, here's what's happened. Let's put our heads down and crack on with it. And it'll all be all right. She couldn't promise me my disability would go away, but she could promise me how I feel about it would.
Were there any moments where you felt utter and total despair?
Well, we all go through those sort of like why me moments, irrespective of disability or disfigurement. I think it's simply part of the human condition. So having a disfigurement did compound it slightly, particularly in those teenage years where this bizarre cult of personality and popularity kick in. And you see all the popular kids in one corner, the it girls in another, the jocks, the nerds, the emos. And so I had to contend with all that, plus the medical stuff. And there were times when I'd just go home and be like, oh, why? Why do I got to go and do this all again tomorrow? What the hell? And then you end up coming out the other end, looking back. And I'm not, and if you're a young person listening to this, I'm not saying don't work hard and there aren't merits to academia, but the whole college or high school is so dumb, so very, very dumb. You, on the last day, you'll go in, cry, you'll sign people's yearbook and say we're going to be friends forever, and you'll see them at weddings, funerals, and maybe Christmas, and that'll be it.
And then they say in your yearbook, don't ever change. It's like, don't ever change. That's the idea.
Right? It's like me again. I'm not like, please change. Please, in 10 years' time, don't be this person. Because this person, right now, rock and roll, 10 years' time, you'll be an idiot. Like, so yeah, please change.
Please change. I'd like to talk about terminology. I've heard you use the term facial disfigurement, and there's been some debate about it. Actually, another guest I'll be interviewing doesn't like to be called disfigured or deformed. And then there's also the more neutral term, visible facial difference. How do you feel about the terms we use?
I use the term disfigurement very, very deliberately because it means we all know what we're talking about. You've outlined the parameters of the situation in a very well-defined manner. I do understand why people use terms such as visual difference, and so these are just my opinions. I think the term visual difference in the context of the conversation we're having now is a tad Disney and a tad meaningless because we're all visually different. Like, what exactly are you talking about? So yeah, I pick my language quite deliberately. And I'm not a big fan of policing language either. I think the more eggshells you put down for people to trip on, the harder conversations like this one are. And so rather than like having them and thrashing them out, people end up sitting in a very noble, well-meaning silence that then leads to an unintentional yet uninformed ignorance, and nothing ever moves forward. And I reckon if we spent as much time discussing actual issues and less time telling people what they can and can't say, I reckon the world would be a much more well-informed place.
I imagine that the question that you get a lot is how people receive you when you're out and about, when you're in an area where people don't know you. And from the films that you've made, I've seen scenes where people, recoil or they look even closer with curiosity. You get all sorts of comments. Will you talk about, over the course of your life, what you've experienced when being around people who've never seen you before, what those reactions are and how it feels to you now?
So the curiosity I get. When you see something you don't see on a regular basis, you go into a flight freeze. That's a hardwired psychological response. I have no problem with it.
Nothing personal.
No, nothing personal at all, until it goes into a sort of like more vaudevillian kind of curiosity, when like the camera phones come out, or the whispering and the pointing, and the discussing me like a medical exhibit or an attraction in the Lego store or what have you. That's when it sort of starts to become a little bit more uncomfortable. And if you want to talk about it, rock and roll. As I say, let's talk about it. I'm not going to police your words. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to bite your head up and start shouting isms. And I'm not going to be a complete woke moron about the whole thing either, because that helps no one. In the same way that other people's behavior doesn't help the situation, nor does me going too far the other way and going, you're all woke and ableist and need to grow up. I don't want to be that guy either. But as you get older, you become more comfortable in your own skin. And I don't really pay much attention now to what random strangers, either in person or on the internet, think of me or how they react to me. Because I'm not really there to please them or entertain them. And if you want to have a chat, we can have a chat. If you're there to get a look at greatness, get a look at greatness. And I think as long as you're a good guy and you've got a little bit of charisma and gravitas to you, people will like you. The comedian Jim Jeffries says that you can boil any kind of doctrine down to 3 simple words: don't be a d-. I don't always succeed, but I always try and not be a d-. Other people's kindness to me should only extend as far as mine goes out to my enemies.
When you've had some experiences on the street of people taking out their phones or saying things, you've also had more scary, difficult, challenging experiences. You did a whole documentary about disability hate crimes, and you even said that at one point somebody thought your face was a mask and tried to pull it off.
Oh yeah, that was in a nightclub. Alcohol is a crazy, crazy drug. And idiots plus alcohol will normally equal bigger idiots. And yeah, there was a time when I'd not been back to that club since. Not because I'm nervous to go there or that experience has traumatized me. It's just when I highlighted it, they didn't do anything. And so they don't deserve my patronage. If you're not going to support me legally, I'm not going to support you financially. That's how any free market works. You vote with your wallet and you vote with your feet. You don't vote on flipping Twitter or X. That is also a pointless endeavor. So yeah, but those things are few and far between, fortunately. But when they do happen, I've got a very tight circle of like friends who are also equally no nonsense. A lot of them own the bars that I drink in now, so I'm very well taken care of with that regard.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact that you have to know somebody who owns a bar to feel safer, I mean, we'll link to this documentary, but the fact is that hate crimes against people with disabilities are drastically underreported. And when they are reported, they are, as you found, not taken as seriously as other ones, yeah?
No, correct. So there's less sentencing. Even the sentence itself is significantly lower than similar crimes for race and religion, certainly in the UK. And when we talk about things like hate crime and hate speech, we're being very, very specific. There's a difference between hate speech and speech that is hateful. They're very, very different things.
How do you articulate that difference?
Hate speech is targeted based upon someone's legally protected characteristics. It has to be the motivating factor. If someone says Adam Pearson's who likes wrestling and plays Magic the Gathering quite badly, good point well made. That is speech that is hateful, but it isn't hate speech. But if they say all disabled people are who like wrestling and play Magic the Gathering badly, then that's made the characteristics, the raison d'etre for the comment, then that is hate speech. I mean, if someone says that to me now, I'd laugh in their face and walk away. I don't think that I wouldn't report that, because that's sort of like a giant waste of everyone's time. There are some things that are just not worth the aggro. And it does pain me to say that, because there is an element of self-accepting fatalism to that. But no, not every hill is worth dying on. And if I call ableism or hate crime everything, when something serious happens, it all becomes a bit boy who cried wolf.
If it's okay, I'd like to talk about this documentary you were part of, Freak Show, and the person who's widely known as the Elephant Man.
Yes, Joseph Merrick.
Yes, his real name was Joseph Merrick. He lived to the late 1800s, and it was thought for a long time that he had what you had,
yes,
neurofibromatosis. But in 1986, it was discovered he actually had Proteus syndrome, a much rarer condition. But diagnosis aside, the physical similarities between you two have been made to you your whole life. And you really confront this relationship with the idea of him, Joseph Merrick, in this documentary. And there's this moment where you visit Merrick's skeleton and you're reading aloud the description of him written by the surgeon Sir Frederick Treves, who knew and worked with Joseph Merrick. And he said that Merrick was
the most disgusting specimen of humanity that I had ever seen. At no time had I ever met with such a degraded or perverted version of a human being as this lone figure displayed.
And you said
where does that then leave me?
And that was such a painful moment for me just to watch someone checking out this documentary, and it made my heart go out to you. But then you skip to the end of the documentary. I didn't skip to the end, but for the purpose of our conversation, we skip to the end of this documentary, and you're about to go on stage with a stand-up act wearing a costume coat that says the Elephant Man on the back of it with an Elephant Man t-shirt. You're starting off your set with, "Let's address the elephant in the room." And you seemed so empowered. There was such a change. I know that people need to watch this documentary to get the whole feel of this, but I would really love for you to talk about this evolution for you with this relationship with the so-called Elephant Man, Joseph Merrick, and who you are now and how you see yourself. I'd love just to hear your thoughts on that relationship.
The idea of exploitation I've always found interesting, because whenever I do any kind of film, documentary, TV appearance, people are always like, "Oh, he's being exploited." And I've always got to respond with, "No, I'm not. I'm getting paid." You can only be exploited if you feel exploited. We're a far cry now from the old kind of exploitation films of like all the pre-code stuff. Because the code came in like 1965 in the States that governs what you can and can't do in filming. But before that, it was a wild west out there. In the Wizard of Oz, I've heard a story. I think it's true, but I hope it isn't. That Toto got paid more than all the Munchkins combined on that film. So to say that I or other disabled actors and performers get exploited, I think is mildly patronizing. The idea that we don't have autonomy and we're blindly signing bits of paper thrust in front of us because there was a Reese's Pieces attached to it with a paper clip is ridiculous, disempowering, and mildly offensive. You can only be exploited if you feel exploited. But also the word exploit just means to use. It was just another long journey on the road of self-discovery. And one's understanding of something is directly proportional to one's proximity to it. And the more people you meet, the more stories you hear, the more you learn, the more your worldview on something will shift, which is the point of documentary, I think. I think good documentary changes what you think, and great documentary changes how you think. And I've got no business in changing what people think.
I'd like to talk about being in film and being an actor. I think a lot of people who are drawn to that profession have a lot of reasons to recoil from it because it's a difficult profession to be in because of your own self-limitations, whether you think you're a good enough actor, if you think you're good enough looking, if you think you would ever, have the real drive to stay put in this entertainment industry, which is so incredibly unpredictable. Will you talk about your earliest real feeling like, not only do I want to do this, but I can do this?
So my first acting gig, acting as we know it, I got by complete mistake. It was a joke that went horribly badly or horribly well, depending if you're a type A or type B. I was a casting researcher for a few reality shows at the time. And I got an email from the charity Changing Faces, who, for those that are unaware, is the largest charity in the UK that support people with facial disfigurements or visual difference, if that's your preferred terminology, saying, "Hey, we've got an email from a casting company. They want a guy with a disfigurement to be in a film." And I was like, "I'm a guy with a disfigurement." And so I caught and I thought, yeah, let's have a laugh. Let's at least waste someone's time. So I made a phone call, had a chat with the casting lady, Carlene, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, no, you sound quite good. Can you write a little paragraph about yourself and send it to me?" And I didn't have time, so I sent my CV. And the opening line of my CV is, "My name is Adam Pearson, and I'm the best in the world at what I do," with no extrapolation on that, just that statement. No further unpacking of that statement at all. And then I heard nothing for like a week, and I just like, whew, dodged, I've got it here. I then get asked to upload a video of myself so they can see how I move, how I talk, and I upload this really sarky YouTube video where I make fun of both my employers, vegans, star signs, cat owners, and then a dog appears in my arms out of nowhere. and heard nothing for 2 weeks and thought, yeah, okay, got rid of them. I then had to go to meet the director for coffee. And on the way to that meeting, I got hit by a black cab and broke my leg. So the first time I met the director, I was under a taxi in my pants, surrounded by paramedics, high as giraffe ass on morphine. And apparently we had this conversation where he went, bloody hell, Adam, I didn't realise you did your own stunt work. To which I replied, do I look like I've got a stunt double? He came and saw me the next day on the trauma wing. I had to have surgery on my leg, so I was waiting for that. He had to take out my kneecap, put a rod and pin everything back together. And that was when I formally accepted the offer. 3 weeks after that, I'm in a light cast. I'm walking on one crutch with a boot on. I had to go to Elstree to meet the lady I'd be working with. And this is when the oh, hell no moment kicked in. I walk up to this lady and go, hi, I'm Adam. And then this woman comes towards me and goes, hi, I'm Scarlett. And I was like, oh, dude, what have you done?
Scarlett Johansson.
What have you done to you? And more importantly, what have you done to this poor, poor woman who's now got to work with you?
So how was it working with her?
She's great. I love her to bits. She's really smart, really funny, really kind, incredibly patient, and I couldn't have asked for a safer set of hands, both directorially and co-star-wise, to be working with. I've got all the time in the world for Scarlett Johansson. She doesn't get anywhere near enough credit for how smart, funny, and kind she is. And if we could all stop calling her ScarJo, that'd really help me out as well. It's Scarlett Johansson. It's not that hard. You don't call Robert Downey Jr. Rodojo.
Rodo.
That's my own branch. If we all start calling him Rodojo, we can keep ScarJo. So if you think, like me, you think that's also ridiculous, let's stop doing it.
I will not call you Adpair.
Please don't. That makes me sound like... It makes it sound like I'm adding fruit to another pile of fruit. Oh, add pear.
Oh, do you even like pears?
It's one of my favorite fruits.
Oh, that's convenient. Now, you also have just spent so much time in front of lenses, both in documentaries and in social media. I get the feeling, from what I know about you, that in one way, this is just the way you are. You are an outgoing person. You have a lot to say. You enjoy it, and that's why you do it. But I can also guess that part of why you're comfortable in front of a lens, or at least comfortable enough to keep doing it, is because you want people to see you. Damn it! There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be afraid of. You have every right, and let's go. Let's do this more. Yeah.
No, absolutely. In the movie I did in between Under the Skin and A Different Man Changed for Life with the wonderful Jess Weixler, there's this really great line with both our characters that are talking. There's like a film within a film. And there's a line where she says to my character, do you have representation? And that's a loaded line. Because does she mean, does he have representation as in, does he have an agent? Or does she mean, does he have representation as in, does he see people like him in movies outside of the traditional tropes of horror, victim, false hero ideologues? And the more you think about those little innocuous lines that you really need to look for and drill into. So I like things that are sort of like thought-provoking. I'm not a big fan of hand-holding or telling people what to think and feel. Like I said, I'd rather change how they think and feel. It's why I really love art house movies, and it's why I really like comedy. Because comedy lets you discuss things in an insanely brutal way that documentary just doesn't let you do.
You're listening to my conversation with actor Adam Pearson. He has a condition called neurofibromatosis, which causes tumors on his face and upper body. When we get back, Adam describes why being called an inspiration is complicated.
But if you're calling me an inspiration because I'm disabled and can wipe my own may I suggest you set the bar slightly higher.
Then an actress talks about how getting cancer in her face at 18 years old couldn't possibly stop her from pursuing her dreams. I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay with me. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf, and this is actor Adam Pearson, hosting the Real Stories documentary, Freak Show.
My name's Adam Pearson, and I've got a condition called NF1 that causes tumors to grow on my face. All my life I've been called horrible names. Mutant, fat face, spastic, monster, elephant man.
Adam Pearson is a pretty big deal. He's made waves in documentaries, sharing his own story alongside others with visible facial differences, who would like nothing more than to be seen and known for something besides their distinct faces. And this weekend, his latest film, A Different Man, produced by A24, makes its debut. Adam's neurofibromatosis plays a crucial role in the plot of the film, which made me curious. I wonder about how you feel in terms of your disability being a focal point in a movie or film, or the idea of it being not at all acknowledged. Like, yes, you have this disfigurement and you are 10,000 other things, right? I wonder if you were offered a part in a movie and it had no mention of your disfigurement, it wasn't a part of the script or the plot or anything, would that excite you or would that disappoint you?
I think it would excite me. I think we need more incidental disability and disfigurement in film where it isn't mentioned. So, but then is not mentioning it being disingenuous the other way. And I think I take all scripts and offers that come in on a case-by-case basis, because a lot of things come in now and they aren't all good. You get a lot of kind of doc offers or film offers or podcasts come in, and you've got to go and do your due diligence and make sure that both the message and messenger and platform are all well aligned. I get a lot of offers now from like these really like duty sort of like bro podcasts that all feel a little bit too sort of Andrew Tate for my liking. So yeah, I'm very careful who I do and don't work with, and who I will and won't let have my time. And I think we all should be.
Well, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
For saying yes to this interview. Are there any moments in your life where you're being interviewed or just talking about this, or someone brings up your face and your condition, and you think, can we please just stop talking about this? I'm over it. Do you ever feel that way?
I try not to. I do completely understand that for a lot of people, having to justify your place in the world or explain your disability ad nauseum over and over and over to complete strangers, all with different levels of publicity, can be tedious, and we've only got so many spoons that we can use up till we're just utterly depleted. However, as I think the more space we can give people to have these conversations, and the more open and honest we can make them, because people don't know. And so whilst it isn't the job of me to fix a problem I didn't create, if I don't fix it, I'm not sure who will, and who better equipped to fix it than me. And so if I've got to have the same conversation like 10, 20, 30 times a day to make the world a fairer, more understanding place for not only me, but people like me, if me putting in the groundwork now means there's a whole group of kids coming up behind me who won't have to do this nonsense, then rock on, let's talk.
How do you feel about being called an inspiration?
That is a very complicated word for me, because whenever anyone goes, you're an inspiration, my first my question in response is, why? If you look at me and the work I do and you think, yeah, I want to be that guy, that's inspirational, absolutely rock and roll. But if you're calling me an inspiration because I'm disabled and can wipe my own eye, then may I suggest you set the bar slightly higher for the next disabled person who crosses your path.
I noticed there's a line under some of your TikToks that says, God's favorite disabled guy. I'd like to hear about when you think about your condition and your disability and this whole life you've had. I think regardless of anyone's disability or condition, sometimes if we do believe in God, if we do believe in a higher power, and that there is some sort of, this is what you were given for this life, these are your challenges. Sometimes, regardless of what that condition is, we think, why me? What is behind all this? Do you ever consider God and think, why me? What is this? Why me, of all people?
Now and again, but you tend to catch yourself quite quickly, because then the inverse of that question is, well, why not me? And I'm not a big fan of being like, oh, how can you believe in God when this has happened to you? Just like, because nowhere does it say it won't. Like, if you read the rich man built his house upon the sand, the other on the rocks, and a storm came, and the house, they both went through the storm. There's no storm-proof house in that parable. And there's a bit in Job where Job goes, dude, what the hell? And God comes on and just cracks his arm and goes, all right, put a cap on, let's have this chat, son. And then just schools him. And I don't want to be schooled like that. I don't want that public scolding where God brings up dinosaurs. That'd be terrible.
When you die and you go to the afterlife, assuming there is one, I hope there is. I think there is. I think there's more. I used to be a total atheist, and now I've changed. How much of your body do you think will remain? And by body, I mean the spirit of your body, because I look at my body and I'm fond of it, and there are parts of it that I really love. But I think about how my body, is a vessel for now, for this earthly experience, but also like it's a part of this experience as well. And so I wonder, when you die, I don't know, do you think you'll miss your body? Do you think that part of your body will remain in your spirit?
I don't know. It's a really tricky one. I think when we try to separate the soul from the vessel, it all becomes very complicated, because the vessel is what informs what the soul becomes or doesn't it, and what have you. And I don't know. I like to say I've got a rocking bod now. I'll have a rocking bod then.
Eternally rockin' bod.
Yeah, exactly. Eternally rockin' bod.
All right, well, when you die, hopefully a very long time from now, what do you hope you've accomplished that you haven't already?
Oh, won an Oscar. And the other one's to become WWE champion. And then after that, I'm pretty much done.
Now, I am speaking to you as a fully grown woman who has an impressive onesie collection. You need to know that before I continue. There's a moment in this documentary series you were on, Freak Show, where you were lying in bed in a fully grown man wearing a Superman onesie, which made me feel like, my people. It makes me picture you as a little kid. And it also makes me wonder what you would say to that little kid who was growing into his new face. His new face was growing into him. He was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, like every kid, but in a different way. You had a lot of cruelty in your life that you were just learning how to grapple with. Now, still wearing the Superman onesie, what would you say to that kid if you could go back in time?
I'd say, you got this, and the story ends well. You're the good guy in the story. It's like that moment in sort of like the epic fantasy films like Lord of the Rings, where they're sort of like in the dark forest and like, oh no, we're all screwed. And then you do this like massive pan out and you see the whole world before them. I'd be like, yep, you're in the dark forest now. It sucks. You're hungry. Samwise is getting right on your flipping nerves. But you've got the whole world ahead of you, and this ends well.
All right. Well, Adam Pearson, thank you so much for talking with me.
No, absolute pleasure.
We'll have links to Adam's documentaries and TED Talks at ctpublic.org/audacious, and you can see his new film, A Different Man, right now on Netflix. After the break, meet an actress whose face has been changed dramatically by cancer.
No amount of talking or therapy could have helped me be where I am today, like if I didn't have acting.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay tuned. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. Ever since she was a little kid, Crystal Marshall loved acting. From the script to the stage door, from costumes to curtain calls, she was all in. When she looked in the mirror, she saw the face of an actress. But in 2016, she noticed some swelling in her mouth. The swelling grew, she saw some doctors, and then the diagnosis came: cancer. Crystal underwent chemotherapy at just 18 years old, and then she had 2 major surgeries, one to remove the tumor and another to begin rebuilding her face, teeth, and upper jaw. It was a lot to handle. And while she's still not done with surgeries, she is unstoppable. Crystal just graduated from the prestigious London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art with a BA in professional acting. She's also an advocate for greater representation for all kinds of faces in the arts. We started by Crystal describing how she looks.
I look like a normal Black woman. The only thing is that like my right cheek looks a bit more enlarged and different than the rest of my face. It's like a small orange or something like that, like on my face, basically. And I don't have any top teeth. So apart from that, I'm all normal, I guess.
As you were going through surgery after surgery on this cancer, when you would look in the mirror, how would you feel?
I just felt this deep, dark pit at the bottom of my stomach because I have always wanted to be an actor, and with it being in my face, it was almost like I was being punished by some like external force or something, because it's just like, and like it sounds pretty horrible to say that, but I was just thinking to myself, how come I couldn't have like a blood cancer or a breast cancer or like a leg cancer or anything that would have saved my face? Because acting like it's all in the face and the mouth and the voice and everything, and then to like have had a cancer where it was so aggressive that for like about like a month I couldn't even move my face, or like people that couldn't even notice if I was smiling or sad or not, because it was so immense that my facial expressions were just like one facial expression. And so like it was really hard to speak, communicate, talk, eat and stuff like that. And so like I really went through like a massive wave of depression. Just it's like something that like I'm still trying to process now. Like it comes in waves, I think, because like even though like I am better than I was before, there's still that like trauma that like I think will always be there for the rest of my life. That kind of reminds me that like I look like different and I don't look like everyone else.
How was it when you would go out of the house after these surgeries? How did people react to you?
So after my operation, I literally hid in my house for about 2 years. I didn't go out anywhere. And like if I wanted to go to the park or shopping or to the cinemas, it like had taken me a long, long time to really love myself, really. Like I didn't even really love myself even when I was a teenager and I didn't have cancer. And seeing how people react to me, it has forced me really to love myself and find qualities in myself that like is not like appearance based, that makes me special. Some days I feel like really, really horrible and I hate my face, I hate my life, and I get to these really horrible, like depressive spells. And like now, like I just feel really beautiful, confident, I feel great. And like it's just like an up and down thing, like which will always be, unfortunately. But like I definitely think as well that acting, being around actors who are the most compassionate, caring, accepting people, they're just so amazing. And so like I'm grateful to have been an actor prior to this and also now, to really experience how beautiful people can be inside.
You have this experience with your face, with these surgeries, and you're working as a stage manager at your local theater, but you still have this passion and determination for acting. So how did you go from backstage to onstage?
There came a point But like I saw all my friends on stage who are actors and just having fun and just like playing these amazing characters and being around these amazing big sets and everything every night. And I just had a question like to myself. I thought to myself, like, Crystal, like, what is actually stopping you from acting? Like, who said you can't be on stage? Like, who actually said that to you? And I said to myself, nobody said that to me. Like, I just assumed nobody would really cast me like or look my way, like, because I look at the way that like I do. And then I said to myself, okay, Crystal, try to get rid of those fears and just try to apply that for drama school and go for it. Just go for it. And so like I was like, okay, like what do I have to lose really? Like, and so I just applied to like the top 3 drama schools like in the UK. Then I got rejected from 2, but then one, my dream drama school, I got accepted. And I was just like completely, I was like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because as well, like I filmed that Benedict Cumberbatch, he went there and like he's like the like head ambassador like of the school and stuff like that. And so having that name, like, oh my God, I go to drama school that like Doctor Strange goes to, it was just like completely like amazing moment. And so far it has been an absolute blessing. People still really loving and compassionate. And sometimes I forget that when people stare at me or give me dirty looks in the street because they don't really know what's on my face. I forgot how kind people could have been and accepting people could have been. But that's why, like in the future, like I really want to start up like a drama company of some sort, to help people like me who have had a face difference all their life or have had an acquired that face difference like I have, to really grow confidence and use drama and acting to really find their confidence and find that joy and fun and they can live in again and playing characters and playing drama games again. Because I just feel like no amount of talking or therapy could have helped me be where I am today, like if I didn't have acting. There's something really beautiful and expressive about it.
I'd also like to hear about how you don't see a lot of people who look like you in movies and on stage. I'd just like your thoughts on representation.
Like I feel like if as a kid I'd seen more representation of a person who has face difference, who is like the superhero or like the love interest or like this like great big awesome and that character like who is smart and sexy, like intelligent, like I do really think that like the whole world will be so much more different. And I do feel like the reason why people with face differences get like stares and looks is due to the fact that like the only representation that we have really is people who are like evil and villains who are really like grotesque and people scream and run away and shout whatever or like try to kill that person who looks different. Yeah, like I feel like as well, like it's just like how like in like James Bond and Disney as well, the bad guy is the person who's got like a scar on their face, just to move away from that old narrative and just invite people like me like into like the new. And so that's why I was just so grateful to be accepted like into my drama school. It just like shows that like the world is slowly changing really, like where like a person can see past my facial difference and be like, I want her at that school. That's the reason why I came to drama school, to like speak about this really important issue about how people like us are like shown and perceived like in media and how it needs to change.
When you see pictures of yourself from before Mother's Day 2016, when this all really started unfolding for you, what goes through your heart?
Really, like I just want to give that girl a hug. Like I know that she was really hurting and she didn't really know who she was. Really, like I don't really think, oh my gosh, I wish like I was back to that girl again and Because truly, like, I have become a better person due to having this cancer. Like, I have become more kind and loving and more understandable as well. Like, I do feel like if I didn't have this cancer, like, I wouldn't have met some incredible people who have facial differences, especially people who were born have facial differences and like getting picked on and bullied, but still trying to persevere and trying to live their life to the fullest, and that really inspires me. And so, like, I do think about how sad that little girl was, and how I just want to give her a hug and say that she's beautiful and amazing as she is, and she doesn't have to change herself.
You still have some surgeries scheduled on your face, and I wonder, when you think about the prospect of your facial difference being minimized to the point where people don't even really notice, I wonder how that prospect makes you feel.
I've come to a point now where, and like, if I would have an operation to just like make me go back to normal, like completely, I would really have a serious conversation with myself. People spend their whole lives trying to find a purpose, and I'm looking to like find my purpose and actually have a reason like to get up every morning. Also, and it made me stand out as well than the normal everyday person, and which I find is awesome. Like, you only get like one life, really. Because again, like, I would always wish that like I didn't have to go through what I went through, but I choose not to just like cry in my room and hide from the world because of what's happened to me and like 7 years ago. Like, I choose to live in the present and to be present as much as I can, and realize that like I'm in London, like a drama school, like my dream drama school, and I'm acting. If anything, I just don't want my trauma to go to waste, and I want to help as much people as I can by sharing my story.
What are some reactions people have had that seemed well-meaning, but did not feel well-meaning?
They would just like say, "Oh my God, I want to pray for you. Oh my God, like, God bless you," whatever. That's nice and sweet, but like when you hear it like about 3 times a day, like, it does get really annoying. But if you had a Marvel superhero who looked like me, who like had a facial difference, whatever, I feel like people wouldn't really come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, poor you." And my whole purpose now, like, is I can never ever be a actor, like only like an actor. Like, I need to also like be an advocate.
So you mentioned superheroes. If you could be a superhero, which superhero would you like to be?
Having powers would be really cool, really. Like, I really love Scarlet Witch. That seems like so cool. Or like Black Widow. Like, people who got powers, I think, look really cool.
Crystal Marshall, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
Audacious is always lovingly produced by Jessica Severin DeMartinez, Meg Fitzgerald, Robin Doyon-Aitken, and Meg Dalton at Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford. This is the third in a series of conversations about going through life with a facial difference, and we are going to have a link to the first 2 episodes at ctpublic.org/audacious. You could also find them wherever you get your podcasts. Stay in touch with me on the socials at Kyone Wolf, and you can always send an email to audacious@ctpublic.org. Thanks for listening.